The thing about Alzheimer's or any form of dementia is that it's so unique for each person and what you go through.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another amazing episode of our Diversity and Inclusion Speaker Series. I have an incredible topic with two incredible people here with me today. I'm your moderator just for a little bit, Lenny Hernandez. I have here Ted, a resident at Vitalia, Strongsville. Hello, Ted. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Well, thanks for being here. And I have Dr. Holzner, a leading expert in geriatric patient care and Alzheimer's, to talk about Alzheimer's awareness.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Well, so let's kind of jump right in. Ted, you were telling me a little bit off camera here that you might know a little bit about Alzheimer's. Tell me about that.
Well, my wife was diagnosed with Alzheimer's two years or so ago, and I did. My concern was to find out what Alzheimer's was all about. So I went to the library and accumulated some books from some geriatric doctors and some neurosurgeons, and read up on the information to find out what was in store for me and what was going to happen with my wife. And it was very interesting. And I also got a book called it's called A 36-Hour Day, which is a book for Alzheimer, actually caregivers. So it gave a lot of information, and I read that, and it was very helpful for me to cope with what I was going through with my wife. We were together 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for the last probably, well, we were married 69 and a half years. So the last 2 years, or rather actually, I think it was the last 3 years when it started to face its surface, its ugly face. My wife was doing our checking account, and I could see her laboring over the balancing out the checkbook, and she looked at me and she said, "You're going to have to take over. I can't do this anymore." And it just surprised me, and I said, "Well, okay, I'll try." Because was a marvelous woman. She did everything. She ran the house. We have 5 children, 7 grandchildren, 9 great-grandchildren, and she was just a stupendous woman.
So you have firsthand here, Ted. Well, Dr. Andrea Holzner, hello. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
So you're our expert here today. Ted has been around someone with Alzheimer's, but you are our expert. Tell us a little bit about yourself and go from there.
Thank you. Yeah. I teach and educate doctors. I did have a practice and met with many families like Ted's that were experiencing Alzheimer's and various forms of dementia. And the thing about Alzheimer's or any form of dementia is that it's so unique. And books are fantastic because they enlighten you. It's such a unique experience, right, for each person and what you go through. And the different family support. It sounds like, Ted, you had 5 kids, and maybe grandchildren that were supportive as well, probably. And the greatest thing that you did was educating yourself on Alzheimer's. And so first, I'm so sorry for your loss. And she sounds like she was a wonderful woman. And
Marvelous, yes.
when if it's okay if I ask you a few questions about it, just I think it will
Please do.
I think it will help our audience. When you first noticed and you went into the doctor, what initially happened at the doctor?
Well, we went to our primary care doctor, and I told him that what I was experiencing was kind of surprising. We would drive out to the end of our street, and I'd made a right turn, and my wife said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "We're going to Dr. Wu's, who was our primary care doctor." And she said, "You're going the wrong way." And I said, "No, we've been going this way now for 25 years. So we went there, and I believe they did check her. When I told the doctor what was happening, he did have a geriatric nurse ask her some questions, and of course draw the standard the clock to tell the time, and ask the questions of trying to remember when they gave you the 3 articles to repeat them, and then doing some puzzles. And the doctor really didn't say anything. He just said that she was slipping in her memory, and I should keep an eye on her, which I did.
And did he diagnose dementia or just said cognitive decline?
Cognition declined at the time.
Mhm. When was it that you really learned it was Alzheimer's?
Well, there were many things. He would get up in the morning and wonder where everybody was at, meaning the family. And we lived in a 2-room apartment, so that we only had a single bedroom. And I didn't understand. I would say that they're all grown and they're gone, so we're here by ourselves. And she would look at me puzzled. And then I would go into the shower, and she would keep asking, "Can I come in? Can I come into the shower?" And I said, "Not yet," because I did start to give her showers and dress her, and put her cosmetics on. So she became quite needy. She would set her hair, and a couple times she said, "Well, I can't set my hair." And she said, "Would you help me?" And I would help her. And then the next day she would say, "I can't set my hair, you have to do it." So I went down to the salon with her when she was having her hair done, and I watched how the cosmetologist did her hair. And I bought some curlers, and I started curling her hair at night.
That's
So
fabulous. I love it.
she was very modest. She's a very beautiful woman, and she wanted to always look nice. She wanted to. She wasn't the kind that showed off. She just wanted to. I think she said she wanted to be nice looking for me. When I introduced her to people, she was a hugger, and smiled and threw kisses to everybody. So I was always impressed with her, and I loved her dearly. And then she ended up having acute arthritis in her knees. She was getting cortisone shots, and she ended up having a staph infection. And we went to the Cleveland Clinic, and they diagnosed her with the staph. So we had to go to a rehab, and she had cortisone shots given every 3.5 hours around the clock for 7.5 weeks till the staph cleared up. And then after that, I again just saw progressive problems with her memories. She had short-term memory, but she remembered my name most of the time. But then she started to forget who the names of our children were. She would identify them as she was one of 9 children, and she had 7 sisters, so she would mistakenly call some of my 3 daughters from time to time, call them by her sisters' names. So that's when I knew she was slipping.
Yeah.
Uh,
Did you ever go back to the doctor to get an Alzheimer's diagnosis?
Not really. I did. I went to a geriatric doctor and got checked to see if I was all right, and I checked out okay.
Yeah.
So I just assumed that she was on her way into the dementia disease, and I would take care of her. And I
Well,
became the caregiver for her full time. That's when I
very
started to
fortunate
do
to
the
have, yeah. I mean, it's 75% of caregiving is done at home, right? And about 25% is in a community, in a care community by salaried caregivers. And so the majority of caregivers are just like you, right? Their husbands, wives, adult children. And then it's just, sometimes you gradually kind of wean into it, and other times a crisis occurs. Adult child is immediately given that responsibility of being a caregiver. I want to just share briefly, and probably Ted, you know this from your studies, but I want to let the audience know a little bit about dementia and Alzheimer's, just briefly, to give an overview. So dementia is essentially just a term for cognitive decline.
Yes.
It's basically a word for cognitive decline. Now, many conditions cause dementia. They cause cognitive decline. Strokes, could be vascular dementia, could be diabetes, could be Parkinson's, traumatic brain injury. There are many conditions that cause dementia. And of course, Alzheimer's disease is the leading cause of dementia. Now, I want to just say laterally, and not to negate anything, any need to go to a PCP or by any means. But I will say this, upwards of 70% of diagnoses are incorrect. So that's pretty intense. So I say that not really to fault the doctors, which they do need to up their game on education and understanding diagnosis and working with a team of geriatric experts. But I say that because in some ways, I think to myself, the label doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter if you have vascular dementia or Lewy body or Alzheimer's to an extent. It is cognitive decline, and there are going to be changes that occur with memory. The element of Alzheimer's disease, though, and it's the most progressive, is that Alzheimer's eventually, what happens is the prefrontal area, the front of your brain that is short-term memory, it is seemingly affected first, and then the disease makes its way through the brain, through different lobes of the brain. And eventually it starts affecting our motor skills and our organs and our heart, and eventually it can impact our breathing. Our brain tells us we forget how to eat, we forget how to breathe eventually. So it's incredible, it's hideous, and it's something, I hope we can find a cure for as these numbers are increasing. And what I would say with anyone being a caregiver is read and educate, just like you did, Ted, and have the support as much as you can. If it's your family or friends or neighbors, whoever it is, to have that support. And if you're able to afford, salaried caregiving, or in addition, to alleviate a little bit of your 36-hour day, right? It's like, it's 24/7 that you're vigilant, that you're, hyper vigilant, and it's exhaustive in some ways. Even if you completely love your spouse, it's a lot to take on. Towards the end, I'm assuming that you had your children and maybe grandchildren as support around you.
Well, most of the time I have one of my eldest daughter is a physician's assistant, and she would prompt me through some of the, like when my wife had the short-term memory, she would say, well, you don't argue with her that she doesn't remember, and that the best thing is to just agree with her with, when she makes comments or statements, which I would learn to do. And I just realized after she said to do some reading, which I did, I learned a lot about it. There was a lot of information that I got out of reading the books, and I just did tirelessly work with her. I loved her very much, and there was nothing I wouldn't do for her at any time. And that's what we would do. We would sit in our apartment. She'd have the sundowner at night syndrome, and she'd ask me if that was my apartment, if I owned it, and then I said, no, we live here together. You're my wife. And then she'd look at me and think about it, and then she'd say, well, when's your wife coming home? That was the first time it was a shocker. And I said, you're my wife. And I would bring our wedding picture out, and I'd say, well, here. And she'd point at herself, and she'd say, that's me, but that's not you. And I didn't wear glasses at the time, so she didn't identify me as her husband. And I think that's why she would ask if my wife was coming home. Then she would comment after that, you've got to take me home. And I said, well, we don't have a home. I thought she was talking about the present, and we had sold our home to move into the facility here at Vitalia. And she said she got pretty uppity about it. She said, yes, I do. And then I said, well, what are you going to do when you go home? And she said, I'm going to take care of my mother and father. So then I realized she was now an adolescent. She was back to being with her family,
Right.
her mom and dad, who has, of course, passed away. Only one time during the last 5 or 6 years did she ask me if her mother had passed away, but she never asked me about her father. She was very close with her father, being the baby of the of 9 children. She was the apple of his eye, of course, and she was very close to him. And then, as I said, it progressively started to get worse. I would say, well, we're going to you're going to bed with me tonight. And she'd say, well, call my mother and tell her. So I'd have to take my phone and make a phony call. And then I'd hang up and she'd say, well, what did she say? And I said, well, your mother said she likes me and you could sleep with me tonight. And she'd say, okay, when are we going to bed? So I knew I calmed her down. She did have paranoia also. She
Yeah.
was, we would be in a room and apartment, and she would say, check the doors, see if they're locked. I would have to do that 6 times a night sometimes. Well, we have a patio door and a front door, and she also we had Venetian blinds, and she was very concerned when people walk by on the sidewalk. We have an access sidewalk by the patio, and she would always want the shades drawn. And I said it was like living in a cave then. I said it was very dark, but she also did fall asleep a lot. And then if I would go to the restroom and she would wake up, she would ask where I was at, and I'd answer her, I'm in the bathroom, and she'd say, what are you doing? I said, well, I'll be right out. And but she also seemed to be uh, wanted to have somebody nearby to be there to protect her. So that's what I did. And then I said I did help. I would get her ready for bed and get her clothes on and get her in bed. And then she would want me to go to sleep with her. And I'm a devout Catholic, and I pray at night a lot for everybody. And I found out that if I told her I would be praying, she would say, well, okay. And then I would lay down and she'd say, are you coming to bed? Are you coming to bed? Are you coming to bed? So I finally found the way to get about that. I would get my pajamas on also and go to bed and lay down next to her. And when she'd fall asleep, I'd get up and pray for my half hour. So that was the way I got around that. And
But
go on.
no, go ahead, Ted.
I said she slept very well. She slept all night, but she did get up. She would not wet in the bed, so she'd get up at night by herself and with a walker and go to the bathroom by herself and come back and get in bed, which was something that amazed me.
Did she ever, Ted, as she progressed, did you ever take her back to the doctor to get any medication or address paranoia or anything?
We did talk about medication, and I was told that there was no medication that she could really get in, except for maybe a little bit of medication to relax her. She did have a leaky heart valve, and she did have diabetes. Fortunately she didn't have to take any medication for the diabetes. I watched her uh, diet. I did a lot of cooking at the time, and the doctor did put her on some medication, and then he took her off. He said he would hope that she didn't have to have any. So we kept her AC1 down to a normal
Right.
dementia, and everything was fine. So, but she did have it, and I know the dementia, rather the diabetes, did have activity of bringing her dementia on.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether the heart valve, she did take blood thinner for her heart for a while, but then she did have episodes where she passed out in my arms a half a dozen times, and my checked with my daughter, and she said we should take her off the blood thinner because the blood was running um, improper through her internal mechanism, and that was causing the passing out. She'd pass out in my arms and be unconscious for 5 minutes at a time. So
That's that's
that was
pretty.
a lot of stress on me.
Yeah. So between, I mean, in just only few minutes that you've shared a tiny bit, I would probably lean towards saying she had vascular dementia of some sort and not maybe Alzheimer's disease. Um, However, again, I don't know if the label is that important at that point, except to say we're holistic beings, right? Um, if something's wrong with our stomach or our heart, it's going to affect our brain, or vice versa. Or if we have diabetes, or our bodies are holistic. Everything is connected, and many times one of the number one questions I am asked, like drum roll, is, how can I prevent dementia and Alzheimer's, right? That's like my number one question. And it's a tricky question. And because it's similar to like someone saying, how can I prevent cancer? Right. And many people that are diagnosed with cancer, let's say, they run marathons, they eat healthy, it seems like they take care of themselves and all of that, and then out of the blue they're getting cancer. And the same could be said also with Alzheimer's disease specifically. Now, vascular dementia, or dementia caused by diabetes, or traumatic brain injury or something like that, has a little bit more, I think, understandable impact, right? If you have chronic diabetes, or your glucose is high, or your cholesterol, or your blood pressure, or chronic, if you're one of the 65% of 65 and older adults taking 10 or more medications, the likelihood of developing dementia is pretty darn high.
Yes.
So there are many elements to taking care of ourselves. It's of course it starts with what we ingest, right?
Yeah.
And are we eating processed foods, alcohol, drugs, nicotine? But it's more than that. It's the pollution. The pollution around us. It's the lotions and the cosmetics that we put on our face that are full of, nowadays, a lot of cosmetic companies are looking more natural, like no parabens and all of that. It's, even our underarm deodorant has chemicals and toxins. So we have so many toxins coming at us in our food, and what we put on our bodies, on our hair, in our water, in everything, right? In our food. So it's hard to it's hard to combat that. Like just a normal, healthy person without diabetes, without vascular issues, to maintain homeostasis, right? To maintain that balance is hard. And because we have all these toxins coming at us. So, I say, if you know that you're in a state that has a higher level of pollutants and the air quality is worse, let's say, that's just one example. There are things you can do, air filtration, there's filtering your water, etc. So there are some things we can do. We can take natural elderberry to boost our immune system, right? I think one of the main components to have the least impact of dementia is to keep our immune system strong and functioning, right? That's the thing. It's like even Plato, I'm trying to remember my history. Was Plato like BC? Well, let's just say this. Plato was a heck of a long time ago. And even Plato, back in the day, said we have to have balance in our lives with our food, with our play, with our exercise, with our mind, with work, with relaxation, with play, with our nutrition. So this is nothing new, right? But the unfortunate thing is that our world has gotten more full of pollutants in our air and water and our foods and everything that we put on us. And so it makes it harder. And I would say, not to be a naysayer, I would say, do everything you can to find that balance and to strengthen your immune system. It's the unfortunate thing about dementia is that, especially with comorbidities, when you're looking at a vascular event like your wife had with stroke or a concussion, or sometimes even a hip replacement can expedite cognitive decline. It varies, by person, and currently we're somewhere around 7 million older adults that have dementia, or more specifically Alzheimer's. I actually think that number is higher for just dementia in general. And that's, let's just say 7 million. That's 7 million families, right?
Yes.
And 7 million caregivers that are caring and, trying to figure out making all of these decisions, not only everyday daily activity, but when do I take my loved one into the hospital? When I put them into assisted living or memory care? What decisions, if they don't have a living will, that falls on the next living kin for the health directive and all of that. So one thing that I would advise anyone as they turn 40, I would say, is to have a living will, to have a will, and to have a health directive, and to make some determinations so that that burden doesn't go on your loved ones, right? Because it's overwhelming to be the caregiver and having to make all of these decisions. My mother was diagnosed with vascular dementia. She had strokes and it led up to dementia. And later it was Alzheimer's. She actually did have Alzheimer's. And I think it was a misdiagnosis is what I've determined. And I was the caregiver 24/7, basically stopped my life to be a caregiver. And I had pretty good education in this field, and I was like deer in headlights. I was making hospital visits and nurses coming and doing testing and on and on. And what are the parameters of her safety, right? That was the biggest one, was what I didn't know the parameters of her cognition to keep her safe. When she was with me, newly with me, her bedroom was on the first floor and mine was on the second floor. And I didn't quite know, I was still learning, again, the parameters of the limitations of her cognition. And I woke up in the middle of the night, miraculously, I will say, and my mom was hovering over the gas stove with the gas on. And for quite a while, because the house had that stench, and, you know, it would have taken her, myself, and my dogs had I not woken up, right? So this is very serious. And of course, I always say I mommy proofed my house instantly. You know, I went through and like as if I had a baby, I went through my entire house thinking, you know, what could I get into? How could I harm myself? Even having a numerical pad lock, you know, on things. So safety is a huge issue, and we don't fully know what's going on, right, until we kind of test the parameters. Did you ever experience safety issues, Ted?
No, as I said, I watched her decline from walking with a walker. We did a lot of walking before we came here. We walked half a mile every day, and then when we came here, we walked a little bit, and then she had the problem with her knees, and she was complaining that she couldn't walk that far. We live in apartment. It's about a quarter of a mile walk to the dining area. So she would use the walker, and I would try to get her to walk, and then she said she was too much. She wanted to ride, so I would let her sit on the walker a little bit, and then she would walk a little more. But then after that, she said she couldn't do it anymore. So we got a wheelchair, and I used a wheelchair to transport her back and forth to the dining area and wherever we went to the show. She came with me for exercise, and she did attempt to exercise and do everything that I was doing. And a lot of the residents say that I took exceptional care of her, which I did, and it never bothered me. Nothing was beneath me. I showered her and dressed her and got her ready for the day, and we lived the day as best we could. A lot of the people here didn't recognize that she had any type of dementia, but she acted normal and still smiled. And of course, she couldn't remember names of anybody, but that was part of I'm sure, the dementia, the short term. And she didn't talk a lot because the same way she felt embarrassed because she couldn't get sentences together. So, but as I said, I just I guess I just loved her too much. I just couldn't let her go. I would do everything to keep her going.
I
And it
mean,
was,
I
Well,
think
you guys had such Ted, that's such a compelling story, and I appreciate you sharing all that with us. And it brings up a point that I was thinking that that maybe Dr. Holster, you can kind of uh, inform us here about, is like what, because Ted was a caregiver, you know, for his wife, not everyone has that experience. And so like what can somebody like me or anyone else kind of, how can we help Ted the caregiver kind of help him and his wife if we're in that situation? How can we help there?
yeah, that is a great question. And again, as I mentioned, 75, give or take 75% of caregivers are caring in the home. And many times they are isolated and financially not able to hire a caregiver or someone to come in and give them a break. So it becomes a 24/7, just this chronic vigilance. And it's hard on the caregiver as well. I read somewhere that caregiver financial impact is in the billions, in terms of their own health, mental and physical, and injuries and loss of work, and on and on. I would say that for the caregivers themselves, reach out to the doctor first, or a social worker through the hospital or the clinic, or they can refer you, and look at the options that you have in your community. Look at the options that your insurance will afford, of having someone come in or give a break. And then I would, it's not always easy to ask for help, right? To ask others for support. And then what does that look like? I think as caregivers for the people we love, we get very possessive and like nobody can take care of them as well as I can, right? But we have to allow someone to come in and help, to give us a break so that we could regenerate and have the energy, the mental and physical wherewithal. And so I would, go family and friends and community, whether it's church or any kind of groups that, that people belong to, and just say, hey, I'm a caregiver for my loved one, and it's taxing. And, if there's any way that you would be able to, be of support. And sometimes people want to help, family, friends, and so they want to help, but they have no idea how to help. And so I would say, if you can just let them know, hey, I really, it would be great if I could have a group of you bring us dinner, like different days of the week. Or if you could just come and sit for a while, and yes, there is not enough support out there via insurance and just in the community. And that's why I say it's so important for us to find our community, to find our tribe, to find our group of people, because these are the people that we're going to interact with and find, if somebody has a need, that community can come together and say, this person has a need, let's divide and conquer, right? I see this all the time in churches where someone has an injury or someone has a baby or something, and the community comes together and they have a phone tree and they find people to help, and they just decide, okay, I'm going to take dinner Monday, you're going to take dinner Tuesday, and we're going to do this for so long. You know, the community comes together. And interestingly enough, having community, having purpose, having people in your life that you engage with, also keeps you active. It keeps your immune system up, it keeps you healthier, keeps you balanced, and it staves off dementia. It's one of the elements. And so I would say to anyone, you know, try not to be an island, you know, find your community.
And just for your knowledge, we did have hospice come and give my wife a shower and dress her 3 times a week. They came on twice, Wednesday and Friday, and then through living here at Vitalia, we did get credit for having them come and shower her on Mondays, which they did from the time, well, about a year and a half after we lived here. And then we did hire a nurse that would come in twice a week. But the unfortunate thing is, when I would leave, she would prod the nurse and tell her she wanted to know when I was coming back and call me, and she would do that. And I couldn't be gone more than 15 or 20 minutes, and she would be on the phone and she wanted me to come back to the apartment to be with her. So she was very needy there, and I couldn't turn her down. So I would come, and then after a while, I said we were going to hire her for more time to take care of her. And she started crying, and she said, I do not want anybody but you here. And I had to just go along with her wishes. I could have turned against her, but she wouldn't have accepted it. I could tell you just knowing how emotional she was. So
you bring up a really great point, and it's one that I hear when I'm talking with caregivers, is just that I talk about bringing someone in and they're immediately no, and there's paranoia or there's sadness and whatnot. And so one of the options that I suggest is, if you have a caregiver that you want to hire or someone that you want to bring that person in almost as if you're inviting them to dinner, to hang out, to just be there. You're there. It's no biggie. You're not talking about caregiving. It's just this lovely person that's going to join you for dinner tonight. And, you know, if it's too confusing for your loved one that has dementia, then you just say, this is, you know, a dear friend. I'm inviting them for dinner and they're joining us. And let them get used to them for a while and get familiar with them. And that caregiver can start to incrementally begin to maybe do a little bit more. Oh, you need your sweater? Let me go get that for you. Or maybe, you know, you like some more water? I'll get that for you. You know, start to do more kind of caregiving duties. And then eventually you could transition to maybe being gone for 15 minutes and then increase that. So that has helped in the past. with patients, with clients of mine that we just incrementally introduce someone until it becomes comforting. And then oftentimes the loved one wants that person more and more and more around, right? And so it's easier to make that transition. So that's just one option to try with.
I even had, she would go to the salon once a week and have her hair done here at the facility. And I would try walking out, and she knew the people, and there were other residents in having their hair done. And as soon as she got her hair done, she wanted them to inform me, and I should come and get her. And so that's what I would do. But then even when I would attempt to leave the salon after the second or third visit, she wanted me to stay there with her because she didn't trust me leaving, and she actually drove the poor salon manager goofy because she wanted her to take her back to our apartment. So that's when I decided I'd stay there and just watch her get her hair done. It was just
After 69 years, I think that's okay.
okay. Strange, and to say the fact that we have our meals here at any time we want to eat. The dining room is open from 7 in the morning till 7 at night,
And
7 days a week. So we never had any problem. I cooked once in a while, but at home I did a lot. But when we came here, that was part of the reason why my family had us come to Vitalia, because they said the yard was too big. We had a big property, and my wife needed I need to take care of my wife, and I didn't have the time to take care of the property, the house and the property. So we moved here, and it's been a delight. I love it here.
so I know you're exercising now and such, but how is everything for you now? Does your family still come and visit you and
Oh yes,
support you?
I've been also this year. I've been to 2 weddings. My family's come and picked me up and took me to New York. My sister, who has dementia, her granddaughter got married, and were invited, and I went, and my whole family. There were our five siblings and their spouses all came to the wedding, and it was delightful. We were there for 3 days, and then I came home, and my son is my executor, and he takes care of me, and we are constantly on the phone. And the same thing with my daughters. I came back home, and then I flew back to California. My granddaughter married California, and I spent 9 days there. So I did get away, and I spent 3 days with each of my daughters because they all want equal visits from their dad. So it was a wonderful experience. I got a chance to fly an airplane at 92 years old with my son-in-law, who owns a pilot training company, and he's got 4 airplanes. So we flew over to Mount St. Helens, and he asked me if I wanted to take over the controls, and I flew the plane for 25 minutes, and he was very impressed. Got out off the plane, or out of the plane, he looked at my daughter, and he said, your dad flies better than some of my 30-year-old students. So I felt pretty good about it, but it was very comfortable and very enlightening.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you're doing okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Plus, we also have movies here on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I usually go to the movies, and socially, I help. I figure God's got me here to help the people since I'm healthy right now, and I help some of the people, talk with them socially, and there's a lot of people that are sick, and I try to encourage them to get up and try to walk and do whatever they can.
Let's one more question that I have, doctor, for you, and then we kind of will wrap this whole thing up. Such a great conversation between the two of you. Thank you so much for sharing your guys' stories. I really appreciate that. And I guess the kind of the before I ask if there's anything we missed, I guess the big question that I'd like to ask you, Dr. Holzner, is there a cure coming at all? Is that something that can happen in our lifetime? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I don't want to be the naysayer for so many people that are living with hope, right? I know that there's a lot of money spent doing research. We know the causes in terms of how it's impacted, right? How it impacts the brain and what happens. It's just, I don't want to go into the technical, but, I still have hope, and I believe in researchers. I fight every day in teaching doctors and hospitals and clinics on how to enhance diagnoses and treatments and geriatric patient care because of this happening. So I don't want anyone to lose hope. I just, we really are a society. We're a nation that treats symptoms, and we don't promote wellness. And that needs to shift. We have to produce wellness. And I think if we can make that transition, then we can minimize the numbers. I'd like to think that older adults, and I am one of them, that, we have to, like I said, find balance. We have to really have movement. We have to eat well. I don't think a glass of wine is going to do anything. I think you're okay with that. Enjoy. And, we have to find laughter. We have to get our immune systems in order and find community and find purpose, and keep our minds active. I'm going to burst a bubble here, but a lot of people think crossword puzzles are keeping your mind active. No. Crossword puzzles use your long-term memory, right? So that's there. You're just recalling. But when dementia or Alzheimer's starts affecting short-term memory, we want to keep the brain active, stimulated. And that means learning. That means actual learning something new every day. Could be anything. Read a manual, read a brochure, learn something new where it triggers going down a rabbit hole of curiosity. And that is what keeps your brain healthy. And we used to think older adults could not continue to develop brain cells. But now we know that you can. You can still continue every day as we age, develop. And the more we can stimulate our brains and keep that balance in our lives, the healthier I think we're going to be, right? Overall, holistically. And it sounds utopic and idealistic. And we've heard a lot about the blue zones lately, where people are living to be 100 in certain countries. And they talk about all the areas that I just mentioned. And it's finding balance. But I'll tell you, one of the key common denominators that all of these countries that have people living healthy until 100, and I mean like living home healthy, is they don't take a lot of medications. They don't take a lot of drugs, prescriptive drugs. And if they're sad, they find ways to laugh, and their community rallies, and they hold them up, and they dance, and they laugh, and they, we find natural, healthy alternatives to, symptoms that we have. And symptoms, the thing about symptoms, and I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but is that those are like the fire alarm going off saying, hey, in your house, there's smoke somewhere. There's a root cause of this fire alarm going off. And when we get to high blood pressure or cholesterol or diabetes or something, that's our body saying, hey, we're out of balance. And the wonderful element of our body is that it's amazing. It can heal itself. Your body can heal in so many ways. And no, there are conditions that are unique. I'm not generalizing this to the entire population, but our bodies do have a miraculous ability to heal and find homeostasis again.
Excuse me, how about listening to music rather than watching television?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
That's what I do that probably 6 hours a day. I play all types of music. I love music. Also, when you mentioned laughing, I'm one of the goofuses around here and forever laughing. And I have read where laughing is very healthy for the mind. And I just love to joke around, and that's what I do. There's three of us gentlemen. We sit there and we rag on each other all during dining room eating. So it's fun. It's not nothing malicious. It's just good, clean fun.
And that's how you keep your mind active.
Right.
My goodness.
Yeah,
this is so great. Ted, thank you so much for sharing your story here with us. Dr. Andrea Halsner, thank you so much. Leading expert in geriatric patient care and Alzheimer's. I had to read it because it's such a great specific title. I love it. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story, sharing your insights. This was such an informative, educational, topic. Alzheimer's, it's not going away. And so we need this. More people need to know, and more people need to know what to be looking out for and how to kind of navigate it. And so I appreciate both of you again for sharing your story. And until next time, Doctor, you have anything you want to shout out? If somebody is interested in finding you somewhere and kind of, learning more about what you do, your story, how can we find you?
How can you find me? First, I want to say, Ted, it's been such an honor to meet you.
Thank you.
it's been a joy, and I wish you all the very best in life. And
He was flying a plane not that long ago.
that's crazy.
This man over here.
That's crazy. Yeah, if people want to find me, my website is Ages International, agesintl.com. They can just Google me, I'm everywhere. And but I'd love to come. I provide caregiver support and training and courses and talks. And so yeah, it's just this is my whole passion in life is this subject. And it's just it's an honor to serve the community. That's really my motto.
Yeah.
So I just appreciate you. Thank you so much.
We need people like you in our society.
Oh, thank you. We need more people like you in our society.
Pleasure talking with you. It was very interesting, very enlightening. I'm very proud to be part of this interview.
Well,
Oh,
thank you so much, Ted. Yes.
Well,
Thank you, Dr. Halsner. And until next time, please join us for our next diversity and inclusion speaker series. Y'all get out of here. Go have a great day and keep spreading joy and information and positive vibes out there.
thank you.
And I think to